Hello and welcome to Dear Baddies, boyfriend, bitches, dating, and everything in between. And today we have Dave Glaser. All right, Dave is going to say his last name because I was not able to pronounce it. But we also have Nicole with me. And Dave, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Dave Glaser is how you say my name. Thanks for having me, you two. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think, based on that intro. A little bit about me. I'm a personal trainer in Denver, Colorado, and I do relationship coaching as well. I'm a single dad. I have a 20-year-old daughter, and Cindy and I met on TikTok. That's originally how we got connected, and TikTok's a fun place for me to share content about attachment theory, modern dating, dating apps, text messaging, and overall just relationship theory when it comes to how to show up in modern dating with text messages, social media, and dating apps as a way that people connect and communicate these days.
Definitely. I mean, the dating world is just like, it's a nightmare. I would say that it's just like
a shit show.
Yeah, it is a shit show.
In what way?
In every way.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, I think in every way. I don't know, Dave, I'm curious to know your opinion about dating apps.
Dating apps, I feel there's a desensitization to modern dating because of dating apps. It gives us access to a lot of people right away, which gives us kind of a conundrum. It's called the paradox of choice. When we have too many choices on a dating app, it's very difficult to make any single choice at all. You know, when you go to the Cheesecake Factory and they have 400 menu items, it takes everybody 20 minutes to order. Yeah. Whereas if you go to a specialty fine dining restaurant that only has 6 menu items, people know exactly what they want right away. So there's a lot of people out there that date multiple people at the same time. There's others that like to choose to date one person at a time. Well, online dating kind of muddles the two worlds.
Yeah,
so what are your thoughts?
Pretty accurate.
So my question is, I mean, because honestly, I've been on dating apps for the past 2 weeks and I'm getting burned out. And I'm just like, do I have to reply to all these people? I'm like, nah. And then I just take days. And it's just like, you know, it's just like there's 3 people that I rounded down to 3 people. And it's just like, okay, whoever steps up, then I'm actually going to go with that person because I don't want to chase, but I'm also interested. But, you know, so I'm going to tell you a funny story is that I had met this guy. I matched with him on Hinge. So I'm on Bumble and Hinge. Those are the only 2 dating apps I am. And I'm now networking all over the place. So to meet people organically. And we had matched last year, same, and it's like, he's like, do you want to go ahead and text? I'm like, here's my number. Let's just text because, I mean, this is ridiculous. And he's like, we've texted before. And this was last year. And I don't know what happened. He had a meeting and, you know, I never texted, I never followed up. He never followed up. And now the same thing happened this year. We actually texted each other. And he's like, we texted before and now let's go out. But we haven't been able to because he travels a lot. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be FaceTiming soon.
Oh, good.
Tonight,
yeah.
After this.
I know, like when I was dating, like I would always want to FaceTime first or get on a phone call first just to see if there's actually a connection. I mean, obviously we don't know until we're in person with that person. But I always think that that's like my golden rule, FaceTime or phone call first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really smart way to stay safe when it comes to dating. I think that that's a good approach to saving time as well. You know, if there's no connection over FaceTime, there won't be a connection in person. And you want to know that so that you don't spend 2 hours over cocktails or appetizers or dinner. Yeah. And just within the first 5 minutes, you know that it's not going to be a match. And when Cindy, you were sharing your story earlier, you were talking about, do I have to respond to everybody? And, you know, the correct answer is no. You whittled it down to about 3 people. my question to you is, do you have to match with all of those people?
No, you don't. No,
So,
because I don't
what
match.
what makes you match with that many people? Are you just looking at how many people swiped on you and then
no.
whittling them? No? Tell me more about that.
So I look at their profile. I look to see if we're compatible. Now I'm looking at location, because remember last year I was looking at like distance. It didn't matter. Now I'm like, you know what? If you're outside Georgia, then forget about it. I mean, I'll consider Florida, but I'm like, I want somebody that is local, and then I can actually like grab coffee or movies. Watch movies. Something that someone is going to be here local, because I'm sick and tired of traveling. Well, for someone else.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. The one advantage I think that dating apps do have for us is that mileage parameter setting. How far do you want your radius to be? And if you want it to be 30 miles, you get to pick it at 30 miles. The drawback is that the research shows you have about 0.7 seconds to make a good first impression on a dating app. And it's either a swipe right or a swipe left in under a second. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think people are actually looking at the profile in order to make the swipe right, swipe left decision?
No, they're looking at the picture. And you're right. Because when I see like, no, forget about it. Because if you look at my profile, I have one that is really nicely dressed up. And I have one of me flying a plane, on a hot air balloon, flying, zip lining. Yeah, jumping out of a plane too. So, and that seems like it attracts a lot of men with that.
Yeah, I think one strategy that people have come up with when it comes to online dating is, I'm going to decide in under a second, and that's okay with me. And then after we match, then I'll take a deeper look into their profile. And for me, that brings a really inauthentic approach to dating apps. One, that's going to lead to too many choices, too much noise, and it's going to lead to more conversations that either don't get started or just fizzle out. What are your thoughts?
And you're right about that.
That's pretty accurate. I think with women, I know for me and some of the girlfriends that I have, we do take the time to read the profiles. And a lot of them are just walking red flags as it is. I feel like if you have to spell out, I'm an alpha male, you're really not an alpha male, So,
not likely.
Right. So,
right.
I mean, for me, when I was dating, I feel like reading that would give me a lot of insight on how they were, especially, if we saw like different music tastes, like, are they, able to compromise and, I don't know, stuff like that. What are they into? Are they a homebody? Are they adventurous? Which one? But I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like with men are more, I guess, and obviously this is not every man, but I feel like men are probably a little bit more visual, I guess, maybe not necessarily like read the profiles. Do you think that that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, I definitely think that our biology is for what we see, and the feminine biology or the feminine tendency is to choose based on what they read. So if men are having a hard time getting matches, I always recommend that they expand on their bio. Put very specific things in their bios so that when women are selecting which profiles to swipe left and right on, they select based on the written word. And I found that in my own profile. My initial first impression picture is me and my daughter's puppy, who's like an 8-week-old chocolate lab at the time. So like, you want to talk about thirst traps? That's my thirst trap. That's my first picture.
Yeah.
And then I decided to expand on my own prompts and go a little bit deeper. And my favorite prompt right now is, what are you looking for? Or what do you go crazy for? And I go crazy for a woman with a little bit of fire inside, a little bit bratty, and who can go toe to toe with me. And I think that the quality of women who are attracted to that type of profile is really stepping up, because I stepped up my own game.
And that's good, because I mean, mine is, I attract a lot of pilots, a lot of people that jump off planes, adventurers, a lot of people but it's because of the pictures that I have on my profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like attracts like. So similar interests and shared values. Is that what you're talking about there, Sydney?
Yes. My only thing that I don't understand is if you put that you've never smoked, why the heck do you have a cigarette in your mouth?
I feel like that's got to be
That's a red flag.
That's
That
got
is
to
a
be
red
some
flag.
kind of joke, right? I don't smoke, but here I am with a cigarette, you know. Well,
in my mouth.
Right. So I have a question for you, Dave. So when it comes to dating apps and what you've seen in the past, I guess, on dating apps, what do you think is a big red flag to men that women write in their posts or in their profiles?
Oh, this is a really good question. I appreciate you asking me that. When I'm looking at somebody's profile, I'm looking at the language that they choose to use. Yes, I'm looking at the pictures. I'm looking to see if we have a commonality in active lifestyle. That's really important to me. But I'm also looking for generally a positive outlook in the way that they speak in their prompts. Like if somebody puts in their bio, no smokers, no single dads, no homeless, no unemployed, like there's ways that we can say that we have standards in our profile without stating what we don't want. And I always encourage people to put very specifically in their bio or in their prompts what they want down to the T. Because the more specific we get, the more likely it is that that's going to attract the person that fits what we're looking for.
That's great advice, actually.
That is great advice.
Because I know when I was writing, profiles, I always struggled with what to write. So like I would write something like busy single mom, something like that. And looking back, I feel like that was probably a big old red flag, so, which I don't think that I'm a red flag. Maybe some people that I've dated that may listen to this podcast might think so, but, no.
Let me check my profile because I'm curious now what I have on my profile because I have over 1,200 likes and I haven't even looked at all of them. So does that really
sounds
matter?
Like it would take, that sounds like it would take forever to sift through 1,200 people.
That's too much. I am such an adventurous person, an author, realtor, jump off planes, and working on my pilot license. I love to travel and always seeking to learn and up for an adventure. I'm a full-time single mom of 2 boys. And I'm a host of the Dear Baddies, Boyfriend, Bitches, Dating, and everything in between.
Podcast. Yeah, Nicole, when you were talking about single busy mom or busy single mom, a couple of things come to mind that might attract a couple different types of people. Some people might see that as a challenge, and then other people might see that as like an opportunity to save. And the savior complex is a tricky one in modern dating of like, I'm a fixer. I'm going to help them. Yeah. I'm going to save them. I'm going to be their hero or their white knight. And that's something that can come to the forefront after a certain amount of time in a relationship. And it can be really disruptive to a connection and in a manipulative way.
I wonder if that would be, I guess, a sign of maybe a little bit of narcissism or like codependency.
Codependency for sure.
Yeah. Because I've definitely, one of my longest relationships I had, so I've been divorced for like 3 years. So I dated one guy who I will not mention names, but we'll call him, I don't know. Bob. I was going to say Bob or Bob. I didn't realize he came on very strong. The love bombing was it was in your face, within like 2 to 3 weeks. It's like, I want you to meet my mother. Like, I love you, stuff like that. And I didn't see it. So it was hard that was a tough relationship for sure. And I feel like I think I might've messed up in the beginning when I wrote something along those lines on my dating app, potentially attracting the wrong person. So, and I know, like I told you about our Facebook group. So I feel there's a lot of younger girls in the group. I mean, there's all ages. There's, 21 to like 60, which is great. I love that we have, that big age
diversity.
Gap. Right. The diversity. Yeah. So, but it just goes to show that, it doesn't matter what age you are, you're still going to have issues. So, I mean, I think it all starts with putting the right terminology in your dating profile. So, because then I feel like you're not going to attract a fuckboy, or you're not going to attract someone, like you said, codependent. So,
Right.
yeah, I think it starts there. But other than dating apps, from a male's perspective, like where do you think the best place to meet someone organically would be?
I get this question so often because of the general frustration with dating apps, and I know that I perpetuate that narrative through TikTok and through social media because it's the honest truth, and that's what I like to share about. But I'll share a story from my own personal experience. I was at the grocery store, not intending to meet anybody, just doing my weekly shopping, taking my time because it's a calming thing for me to go do that routine on a Sunday before I meal prep. And I turn a corner and a woman is coming at me, turns a corner, and it's during quarantine, so we have masks on, and she says, "Wow, you have really beautiful eyes." And I caught myself because I wasn't expecting a compliment. And I paused and I said, "I really like your style. Thank you very much." She was very originally dressed, a nice outfit, and there wasn't a need to ask each other out or for each other's number. It was just a nice exchange with a complete stranger in the grocery store when I wasn't expecting it. So I think that's one place. And if you're a man out there, I would go to Target. I was in Target earlier today.
It's a great idea, honestly.
in the home goods section or whatever, and I was like, I have the pick of the litter right here. Like, I have the choices that Cindy has on the dating app. There's 1,200 here in this Target.
I know. Like, I don't know about you, Cindy, but like, if I'm going to go shopping, like I'm going to go to like TJ Maxx or Target or, well, I just bought a house, so lately it's Home Depot. There's a lot of.
What's the ratio there at Home Depot?
It's a lot of older men. So I think if you're in that 45 plus age range, I think that's a great place to meet.
Go there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But this is the thing. I mean, with me, I'm completely learning how to date in my 30s. This is the first time I'm actually getting myself out there. So now I join a country club. My son's friends' parents have been asking me, like, you need to join the country club. Now I'm going to take wine classes. I'm going to take golf courses. I mean, I'm still going to get my skydiving license, but it's basically mingling and going where places that I have not gone before and getting out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. Delta Sky Lounge is really good too. Delta Sky Lounge all day long. That's a
really good place.
Do you go there and there's like a menu of men and it's like, wow. I'm like, he's really cute. And so, depending on the day.
Are they living within our radius though?
Right.
That's really hard.
Cindy.
I know.
Yeah, I don't see the airport as a bad place to meet people either. The last time I went through, I took a trip to Seattle, and on my way back, very, very busy place. The Seattle airport was definitely a target-rich environment, but you have to understand that not everybody's going to be able to. You're not having access to everybody that you would meet in an airport. They might not be getting on the same plane back to Denver as I am. That
is true. But like the guy I met in Melbourne, Florida, did I tell you guys about that guy? Mm-hmm. Okay. I told her, but I haven't told you. So I met this guy. I was not expecting to meet anybody. I got on the app and I was about to unmatch this guy. You know my history with military men, by the way. So I'm like, you know what? I'm done with military guys. He's like, I just got out of the military. I just moved from Hawaii to Florida not even a week ago. And history repeats itself because the same thing happened with me and my ex-boyfriend. I met him at a wedding and he was moving from, Columbus, Mississippi to Albuquerque. Same thing. And I'm like, I don't know if this is like a red flag or if this is like run. But I mean, he has gorgeous blue eyes. I have a thing for men with blue eyes, by the way. Mm-hmm. And my dad has blue eyes. And I'm like, he's starting a new career and all that. And I'm like, he's just applying away. So now we're in 5 minutes. I mean, I mean,
Okay.
I might even take a chance on that, but I don't know.
What would make you take that risk there, Cindy?
I don't know, but it's just like, I don't want to do that again. That's my thing. I want someone local.
What's your hesitation there?
The distance. I mean, this time I'm seeing the distance. I just bought a new house. I'm established here in Georgia. My business is here. I mean, yeah, I can expand it to Florida, but do I really want to do that? I'll buy a vacation house down there, but I don't really want to do that. Can he move down here or up here? That would be perfect.
It makes a lot of sense.
But it's finding a man that is willing to do that.
Well, so that kind of begs the question, Cindy, since you're talking to, a few different men at this time, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all.
She's got a roster.
In my gosh. I mean, men have rosters too, so I don't see anything wrong with it. But so because you're talking to so many people at one time, like Dave, in your opinion, assuming men do the exact same thing, how do men determine, who they're going to see? Is it based on a 1 to 5 scale? Like how does that, I guess, how is that perceived in the male brain?
That's a really good question. I don't think we're doing too much thinking about it. We're pretty much just going with our head, our heart, and our balls with this decision. So
I was going to ask that one.
what we want to keep in mind with modern dating and dating apps is that men get about 10% of the engagement and interaction and matches that women do on online dating. Mm-hmm. So we can't necessarily assume that somebody is talking to as many people as we are. It comes down to a values-based question, though. What is in alignment with my own values? Do I have a personal problem with speaking to 5 people at the same time? No, of course not. Do I have a logistical challenge dating 5 people at the same time? Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
But that's not going to hold me back from trying,
Right.
because we have these biological drives within us. And what I think that the men are choosing based on is availability. Who's giving response, who's reciprocating, and who's accepting the dates. They might actually be really good with rejection, asking 10 women for their numbers on the dating app, getting 3 numbers, and actually getting to the date with 2. And so therefore the numbers game, which online dating gets a reputation for being a numbers game, it's fact. Start 15 conversations to exchange 5 phone numbers to get 2 people on a date. Well, that's our pool of people. Our pool of people is not the 13 people that fizzled out. We're not going to, like Cindy said earlier, we're not going to chase those people.
I agree with that.
Why do men feel the need to not chase? Because I remember growing up with, my Southern grandparents, I always remember them saying, you got to let it, if a man wants you, he'll chase you. But I don't feel in 2022 that is really, and maybe it's because there are so many options, or, everyone has a plan B. Why do you think that is? That I guess that's really not a relevant saying anymore.
It sounds as if that's a regional narrative, and it might even be a false narrative in every single generation, because naturally, biologically, we call it psychobiological. The masculine energy is not going to chase what he wants. He's going to pursue it. And like I said earlier, the people who are not responding, if I were to continue to engage in those people, like the man who slides up into your DMs 15 times in a row with no response, that's chase type energy. A man who pursues what he wants is actually getting reciprocation. And there's a huge difference here, because the man who pursues the feminine energy can also pursue his purpose with his life's energy, right? His core energy can be in pursuit of both his purpose and his partner at the same time. If we're diluting that energy, that core energy, with the chase energy, well, then we're taking up space for what is actually meant for us.
So I have a question for you on this, because so here we say, okay, women shouldn't chase and all that. But then when men chase and they pursue, then we have a little problem. Then we call it love bombing. We call it stalking. We call it, I don't know what else we call it, but obsess. So where do we put the fine line there?
I think that we can establish some boundaries for sure. When we start to feel that graspy sense of urgency type chase energy from anybody that we're speaking to on a dating app, or on text message or on social media, and it doesn't matter the gender. If somebody is coming on too strong, that's certainly something to be conscious of. It's not an immediate red flag. It might be eventually a red flag, but it's something to be conscious of. And love bombing, I think, is a little bit more extreme than chase. The chase is coming from an immature place in the masculine of like, I gotta have it. I need it. It's an ego-based decision. But the love bombing is more manipulation. That's known as like covert. I'm not going to label it as narcissism, because we all have narcissistic tendencies and narcissistic traits within us, but it's definitely a narcissistic tendency in order to love bomb. It's manipulative in nature to get somebody else's behavior to change to line up with what we want, to feed our own ego, basically.
So now with this, now I want to go into the attachments. So then, because then there is all these traumas, and okay, so then what attachment style fits best with you? It's the avoidance, and I can't remember the other ones.
Sure, yeah. There's 3 different attachment styles, and if I could get clarification on your question, I think I heard you say which attachment style lines up with you best. Can you expand on that question for me, please?
With different people, that is correct. Not
Sure.
with me, but
okay. We're not talking about who I attract as my attachment style, because that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. But for our conversation today, we'll talk about 4 different types of attachment styles. About 50% of the population is securely attached. That's good news for most people out there. 25% of the population is avoidantly attached. That's the bad news. 20% of the population is anxiously attached. And then 5% of the population is known as disorganized. And that includes your psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, anxious avoidant, anxious preoccupied, fearful avoidant, and so forth. So the main 3 attachment styles can be in relationship with each other. There are definitely optimal matches. Like I just interviewed an amazing guest on my own podcast where she is talking about the securely attached people self-selecting themselves out of the dating pool because they gravitate to one another. There's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of ease of conversation. There's a lot of familiarity with the securely attached person attracting another secure person. And so they tend to make the decision to be in partnership faster than the other 2 attachment styles. So when you find yourself on a dating app and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody is avoidant on a dating app, everybody's anxious on a dating app, well, that's likely because the securely attached people who are using dating apps to meet other people are self-selecting themselves off the app. They delete their profile and they're no longer available to the people who are left, leaving us the avoidant and the anxiously attached people. And those 2 types gravitate to each other like it's a magnetic pole. It's called the push-pull dynamic in psychology, but it's also called the anxious avoidant trap in attachment theory. And this is something to be incredibly conscious of. First of all, identifying what our own attachment style is. I'm a fearful avoidant, so I can really empathize with both the anxious and the avoidant style because I have both of those energies within me. It's really a gift. It sounds bad, but it's actually a gift for me. I can tune into my body's central nervous system and I can listen to my body and trust that it's not butterflies, that this is actually a gut punch when I meet somebody new. And so when the anxious and the avoidant attract each other, it can oftentimes feel like fireworks or chemistry in the first 3 to 4 weeks. And then the anxious attachment style might start love bombing, which feels to the avoidant like it's very invasive in their independence and in their own life structure. So they tend to pull back after 3 to 4 weeks. And that makes the anxious attachment style chase after the avoidant. And then the avoidant runs even further. And then it's this push-pull dynamic or the anxious avoidant trap that gets activated when we're in relationship with each other. Does that make sense?
It does.
It makes total sense. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Because I mean, I'm an avoidance style. I don't like, I don't like, yeah, it's not confrontation, but it's like, don't love
Closeness,
bomb me.
intimacy, right?
Yeah. I'm a
Yeah.
porcupine. I put it the porcupine style.
So what's your opinion on the 5 love languages? Do you think that those are still relevant today?
Yeah, I absolutely think that they're very applicable. Again, it's about self-awareness. When we identify what our attachment style is, then we get to learn more about ourselves. We can communicate better to future partners about what we need, what we don't need, what we want, and what we don't want. And then when we add the love languages into that conversation, we can get more specific with what we actually do want and what we actually don't need. If my top 2 love languages are quality time and physical touch, but gifts and words of affirmation are really low on that list, well, then you might actually hear me asking my partner for more time together, more physical touch, and almost never ask for a gift. And knowing that about ourselves can help us communicate with our partners, but it can also help us manage expectations too. Of like, if I have clear communication and comprehension with my partner about what my love language is, what their love languages are, and we get this miscommunication or we get this dysregulation in our nervous systems, a fight, basically, a fight over dinner. Well, a words of affirmation person is going to feel a little resentful that they didn't get the compliment on how good dinner was. But a person who's not high on that list of giving words of affirmation isn't going to notice that. And so they have to communicate about like, hey, I really felt like you dropped me after dinner by not thanking me and complimenting the dinner. You know that that's really important to me. What's ultimately important about this is not to use these tools as a weapon.
That makes total sense. I think we probably all use them as a weapon at some point or another, but I think being conscious of doing that is definitely something to keep in mind. So do you think that the attachment styles, do they always go hand in hand with the love languages, or is that, do you think that they're totally separate?
I think that they're both really applicable. They're not identical, which is great. Assessments can kind of get overwhelming, like it can be too much self-awareness at times. I sit with that quite a bit in my own experience. But when we I'll just provide an example from my own experience. I have an avoidant attachment style, and I was dating a partner for about 3.5 years who had words of affirmation as her love language. We fought nonstop about this words of affirmation love language for years. And as an avoidant, I really didn't want to get close to my partner, so I didn't offer up. I didn't give those words of affirmation out of firm, it wasn't a boundary, it was out of spite. And I think that when we can acknowledge that that's a flaw and a fault of our own, then we can either choose to work with it and choose to grow and choose to give, or we choose a different partnership. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now I have a question for you, because now I am going to bring another test, which is the personality test. So I am a protagonist. So then does this personality test goes with the love language, attachment, and all that? Do they all correlate together?
Sure. Are you talking about the enneagram that
Yes,
we've spoken of quite a bit?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I remember that you're a moral protagonist, which is the type 1. I'm a type 8, the challenger, which is known to be very intense, fears vulnerability. And when we understand that this self-awareness tool can help us understand how others view us, this may not be how we view ourselves, but it's a tool to help us understand what others feel in our presence. So let's take the challenger, an avoidant attachment style, and my love languages of quality time and physical touch, and layer them together. So if my challenger personality type, which is a great assessment, it's very thorough and in-depth, doesn't like vulnerability, well, then it's going to fit in perfectly with the avoidant attachment style, because they also don't like intimacy, closeness, and vulnerability. So that's a double-edged sword when it comes to me and relating to other people. And then if we have quality time and physical touch as my love languages, well, then how do I get those needs met when I'm fearing vulnerability, don't like intimacy and closeness, but I also crave physical touch and quality time? So it's almost like, can we sit on the same couch but sit at opposite ends and touch toes underneath this one blanket while we watch a movie and not talk to each other? Well, that's not going to help a lot of people in relationship. So I chose to use all three of these tools. Once I was ready to start making a change in my life, I decided to use these three tools as a path to growth. And if I'm known as intense or fearing vulnerability, well, then those are opportunities for me to look at ways I can soften my approach. Can I slow start up a conversation with my partner? If I'm fearing vulnerability, is there a way that I can ease my way into a relationship and not go all in the first 3 weeks, so that I don't pull away with an avoidant attachment style? And these are all ways that I've understood myself to be a better partner in a relationship when I lean in as opposed to pull away. Great question, Cindy.
When did you discover all of these different, I guess, personality tests? Like how long did it take you to be like, all right, well, this isn't bullshit. This is actually how I am, and this is how I need to portray myself.
Right. That's a fun question. We'll start with the Enneagram. I was working as my personal trainer. I had my own studio. I was working with clients every day, and they had just come from this really cool workshop, and they were raving about it. And they're like, Dave, you got to take this assessment, and you got to go to this next workshop, and you will have so much fun. It's so great. Da 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 da. And they were talking about the Enneagram. And the next time that this workshop came around in Denver, I signed up and I invited my partner to go along with me. She had a couple younger kids, so she wasn't available that night. But I'm sitting in this room with a great leader, a great teacher, and about 70 other people in the room. And I had my assessment in front of me. I had my printout, and she starts to describe my type. And I was like, oh, this is spot on. And then she started to describe my partner's type. And without her taking the test, I knew spot on. I sent her the link, and I said, you got to check this out. Tell me what you think. And she replied back, this is spot on. Oh my gosh, it's so accurate. And it was in that workshop that I understood, not even with my partner being there, why we were having so many challenges in our relationship. She's known as the helper, and she really, really, really wants to help others, puts others before herself to the detriment of her own self-care, her own health. And I saw that showing up in our relationship. And we spoke to codependency earlier, and this was my first look into how I show up codependently. And the Enneagram was a tool that helped me do that. I was enabling my partner to over-help me. And I was avoiding the intimacy and giving her the words of affirmation that she deserved for helping me. And so she never felt loved. And our relationship didn't last much longer than that because I saw this as a path to growth, and she chose not to take that step with me. And so we grew apart. And then after that breakup and one other that was about 6 months later, that's when I found the attachment styles and attachment theory. And it was game over for me. I was leaning all the way in. I was head first into researching modern dating, and I decided to start the podcast. And I sought out experts and authors and speakers and coaches and therapists and counselors to come speak to me about modern dating because I knew nothing. And then fast forward 4.5 years later, here we are chatting with Cindy, who I met on TikTok, who became a client, and the podcast has about 241 episodes now, and we dig into things like attachment theory, the Enneagram, masculine, feminine energy dynamics, and we just have a blast doing it.
That's amazing. What's the name of your podcast?
It's my name. You can search the Dave Glaser podcast.
Okay, great.
So I have a question for you. So now, would you recommend, like, female and male, like just trying to talk, would you recommend them to do, like, what is your five love language? What is your Enneagram? What is your attachment style?
Now, at what point are we having this conversation about personality assessment tests? Because I was so involved. I was so interested in the Enneagram that I got feedback from a professional acquaintance of mine. He's like, Dave, you talk about the Enneagram so much and you talk about dating so much. When do you have your dates take the test? Is it before, during, or after the first date? And I had to catch myself in speaking to this level on first dates, because it really can be confronting and off-putting to bring that much self-awareness to a first date, but also to talk in such detail when first dates should really be fun. Like, I did have a recent first date. We met up at a local bar. I don't drink, but I don't mind if my partner drinks a glass of wine or two or whatever within reason. And we met up, and she had a glass of wine and to strengths finder, because that's what she does professionally. And then the conversation went to a book that she was reading. It's called Wired for Love. And I just happened to be reading Wired for Dating, which is written by the same author. So because we were talking about books we enjoy, which can be a fun first date topic, then the conversation turned to attachment theory and the Enneagram. And she just happened to be a 1 on the Enneagram as well, Cindy. Like, I felt as if I was sitting at a cocktail table in Denver having a conversation with you. We went out a second time. She wasn't ready to be really dating out there, but this was one scenario where we were both passionate about self-awareness, and she did it professionally and I do it through the podcast, that it came up. So knowing that about each other, we were able to have deeper conversations faster or sooner. But, you know, depth in my conversation may be about topics that may never come up for you, Cindy, and you could still have the same feelings of that depth, the deep, deep connection that you're looking for over the Pittsburgh Steelers or over boating in Florida. You know, the topics don't matter just as long as you both enjoy them.
So when do you know, and this might be a duh question, but when do you know that you're giving away too much information on a first date?
Ooh, we call it the deer in headlights, right? Like if I start to feel my body language lean back in my chair, or I start to get a little spacey of like, what did she just say there? I don't think I was listening. That's when I know that I'm disengaged, and I might have that glassy look in my eye. So I need to snap myself back to the present moment. I may ask a very intriguing follow-up question to just kind of like break the pattern of conversation. And I did have a recent first date. This was awful. Like, we met on Hinge, and very, very long paragraph messages in the app before I even got the chance to respond. And I'm like, you know, I'm working on a couple of things in my life. I'm not taking things personally. I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. I see that she's giving me a lot of information in the app before we exchange numbers, before we even set the date. And then we set the date, exchange numbers, and she did it again over text. And she's like, you're not much of a texter, are you?
Oh.
And I was like, you know, that's a very valid question. I appreciate you asking. Not when I'm at work.
That's totally
And she was
fair.
like, oh, I received that. And she backed off a lot. Well, guess what? On the first date, it was the exact same thing. It was really dominated on one side of the table. And I remember she said at one point, she's like, you're smiling a lot. And I was like, you know, honestly, I have a lot of gratitude for life right now. I have a lot of joy in my life. And she's like, oh, tell me more about that. And so I started to talk about jujitsu. 5 seconds later, she interrupts me and starts going off again.
Oh.
There's a certain mindfulness that we need to have when we're on first dates, because if it's 60-40 split conversation, 50-50, that's great. If it gets closer to 70-30 being dominated on one side of the table, we know that there's not that much of a connection. Unless, of course, we could talk about masculine, feminine energy all day long, but if the masculine is holding space for the feminine, there's a whole lot of chaos that can be filled in that space. Not sure if you can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Nicole. No, it's just like, it's really, really interesting, because you're right. But then again, I mean, I really don't have time to, like, for me, when I reply, yes, sometimes I reply like, I mean, Nicole, you and I, we chatted a lot. And I mean, Dave, you and I, we have chatted too. And it's just like, sometimes I'll reply a little paragraph, and then I'll just keep on like sending sentences. But it's just like, that takes, you shouldn't give that much information. If I want to scare someone away, I will definitely throw this. I'm like, look, I donated my eggs to my brother. So, I mean, that's the first thing. If I just want to scare them away, I mean, I actually did that. Donated my eggs to my brother, and they're having a baby with my eggs. So my brother-in-law's, fertilized that. And you know what? They're just putting that in a surrogate. So if you don't like that, then bye. Just to scare them away. But I don't do that with everybody, though. And that's where my avoidance style comes in.
Yeah, I can see that. Nicole, did you have a question?
I do. So, Cindy, did you potentially maybe you just weren't ready for that relationship, and maybe that was something that you did on purpose, not thinking about it?
Oh, no, I did that on purpose. Fully on purpose.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, as opposed to being honest and telling the truth and saying, hey, I just don't feel a connection, I'm going to use the restroom and then I'm going to head on out. Nice to meet you. You choose to push them away with TMI, too much information. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, but they don't go away.
No, because they find that very interesting and they find it to be a challenge. And they want to know more because they believe that you're engaging out of interest.
Oh, yep. We need to use that block button a lot. A lot.
Or just clear, comprehensible communication.
That's good to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dave, do you think that there is ever a time where ghosting is okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I recorded an entire episode on this one topic. I feel as if your safety is in jeopardy, absolutely ghost that person. If they were inappropriate and stepped over a boundary multiple times on a date, I would say not necessary to have a thank you conversation, best of luck to you conversation. Those are the two most obvious ones that I have. Honestly, after a first date, if there's no connection and it's mutual and you just say, hey, thanks for a great time, that's not ghosting if you never contact that person again. That's a polite ending to a first date where neither one of you are interested in a second. So that's more like mutual ending, as long as there's like a cordial goodbye.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming if you've slept with them, ghosting is probably not okay.
Absolutely not okay.
Yeah.
If you've been intimate, second base and beyond, you should probably send the thanks but no thanks text.
Yeah.
So
when do you think? Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I was just going to ask you a question. So I know, like for myself, I have the 90-day kind of, I don't want to say rule, but guideline, I guess. So like, the first 30 days you get to know them. Potentially at the end of that 30 days, you become exclusive, and then so on and so forth. 30 to 60 days, you get to know them even better. You sleep with them during that time, and then, potentially they become boyfriend, girlfriend. So during that first 90 days, or I guess whatever your guideline is, when is it appropriate to sleep with them?
That's a really valid question. And I think that timeline is going to be different for everybody. As long as people are two consenting adults and they have clear boundaries and they stay safe, then they could sleep together on the first date and that be completely okay. I feel as if being completely transparent about what you're looking for before the first date or on the first date, hey, I'm looking for just something really casual right now. And if that's okay with two people who are consenting adults, I say go for it. If people are looking for a long-term relationship that leads to marriage and they feel really good connection on the second date and they're both consenting adults and they stay safe, I say fucking go for it. Because we were mentioning false narratives earlier, and the regional one that you came from of like, oh, if he wants you, he'll chase you kind of a thing, right?
Well, the narrative, put the Southern accent on that too.
The narrative in America comes from our culture, right? Our sociological culture. And it's oftentimes passed down through generations as a way to shame people. If sex education is is used to shame people into abstinence, well, then that's going to create a narrative in our culture that may or may not be true for everybody. And what makes sense to me and my partner doesn't have to make sense to you or Cindy or anybody listening to this podcast.
I completely agree with you. My whole thing is, I just like, how do you say this? I think I'm a sapiosexual.
Okay.
So that means that I'm attracted to intelligence, but at the same time, it's just like, if there's not a connection, I can't have sex. Like, there has to be a connection. If I like you, I'm just not going to sleep with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's different
valid
for everybody. Because, like, I know that, especially after my ex-husband and I separated, like, I feel like I didn't really get to experience my 20s. So I kind of, like, let loose a little bit, probably more than maybe I should have. But I learned a lot through all of that. To where, now being in my mid-30s, I know what to look out for, what to avoid and, I guess, go with when it comes to dating. So I don't think it's always a bad thing to
let loose.
Yeah, to let loose. Yeah.
Sure.
I think you learn a lot about yourself too.
I mean, it's just like, you're right on that. I mean, and but I mean, we become like really good friends, but that's the thing, is the emotions. And I don't like having avoidant style again. And it's just like, and like, once you sleep with someone, it's just like, you get, I don't know, that connection. Then you start like, oh, I want to have sex with him again. And like, I don't want that. I'm like, no, stay away. Leave me alone.
I want you close, but I want you far away. Can I have both, please?
Yes.
Yeah, spoken like a true avoidant, right? And
that's the thing. And that's the reason that I've been looking for long distance relationships. And now it's just like, okay, there's this guy I'm going out on Tuesday with, and we met at an event, and he's like, let's go out. And we texted him like, look, I want to tell you something. I don't mix business and pleasure. I am not going to do this. I'm not going to grab coffee because I know where this is going to lead. And I was like, pushed him away. So, but we're going out on Tuesday. It took me almost a month. And then there's another guy.
Persistence is key, guys. Persistence is key.
But I see him all the time.
Right.
I mean, I see him all the time. So it's just like, okay, so it does take time, baby steps, to just like open the little door.
Dave, you mentioned something earlier about the woman telling you the beautiful eyes of the grocery store. So just, I guess, from a male's perspective, I'm assuming that men are not as, I guess, approached as women are. Yeah.
I would say that's an accurate statement. And one of the funny facts about human biology, psychobiology, is that men are like light switches and women are like dials. Instantly, when that person gave me a compliment, because they're few and far between from strangers who approach, I was a light switch, not in a sexual way, just in a like, wow, an appreciation kind of a way. And men really receive appreciation very well. So if there's a compliment that we can give to a perfect stranger, like a woman wants to approach a man and she wants to really get his attention, appreciate his intelligence, appreciate his strength, appreciate his appearance, and it will go a long way to make a great first impression if you want to approach somebody in a grocery store.
Yeah. So from a female perspective, I feel like we live in a day and age where maybe we should be approaching men more than men approach us. So if we were going to do that, what do you think is the best course of action for that? Like, I guess, what would be the right thing to say? To compliment him?
I wouldn't even start with that. I would say,
hi, a simple
hey,
hi.
hey, touch him, touch him on the elbow if he's close to you. Like, break the touch barrier. Hey, I saw you over here. I wanted to come and introduce myself. And that's all you'll have to say, because if he is open, available, and interested, he'll take the lead from there. And if he doesn't, then it's not worth chasing.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Cindy, did you have something to say?
I was gonna say, so it'd be like, okay, so compliments. I'm gonna practice this in the next 2 days
In what way?
because I'm going to 2 events. So I mean, I'm going to 2 networking events. So actually 3. So yeah. So then I'll be like, okay, let me see. No ring, single,
I need a
perfect.
full report when you
Hi.
get back.
So
Definitely.
are you, let me ask you a question there, Cindy. Are you open to it?
To open to what?
Are you open to a question?
No, not right. Oh yeah, I'm open to a question. Go for it.
So is this a professional or a personal networking event that you're going to the next couple days?
Actually, I'm actually meeting Nicole for the first time in person.
Okay,
And
fun.
so we're going to the club that I just joined, professional club. I'm not going to mention it because
It's probably smart.
I got invited. Well, we got invited to these events, so it's business. So I mean, it's basically meeting with other business people as well.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I started, like I was going to a lot of real estate events. Now I'm going to different events locally, not locally, but in Atlanta, just because it expands my search and I'm not seeing the same people over and over and over again. And it gets me out of my circle.
Right. Yeah. And it sounded earlier as if you were going to be on the prowl too. Did I hear you right?
The what?
You were going to be on the prowl, like searching for who's my next target. Is that what I heard?
Maybe. I'm not doing it because of that. I'm doing it more likely for networking. But if there's a cute guy, like, hey, I tried to pick up a 19-year-old the other day at the beach, and I got called a MILF. I'm like, oh nope. I'm like, I told him, we'll just exchange Snapchats later. He's like, you're looking nice today. Like, but I was complimenting him, so that's a good thing. I bet he felt really good.
Right. And what would come up for you if I challenged you to be approached as opposed to approaching others for the next couple of days?
I can do that too.
Okay. I want to report that. I want you to report back.
I will definitely.
I'd love to read that report too.
Nicole has seen my report.
No, I mean, I've seen, like you showed me today, like I've seen some of your text messages to men, and I think it's great that you are no bullshit. And I think it's great that you're like, this is what I want. This is when I want it. And this is how you're going to fucking do it. Like I love that. But I also feel like sometimes it's a little strong, but it all depends on the right person, right? So like the right person is going to love that you do that.
Yeah.
Or I think it's all situation. Yeah, but you know what? I feel like, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if you scare them away, then maybe they're just not up for the challenge and they don't deserve to have you.
Yeah, that's not the right fit person.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, be authentic. And if they're not if they're not going to step up or step into your authenticity, then it's time to step out.
Yeah, I
agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that we're right at an hour. So, Dave, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We truly appreciate all the advice you've given us. And I know Cindy and I both have a lot to think about, especially, when it comes to dating in 2022. And again, everybody listening is Dave Glaser. Check out his podcast and his TikToks. They are hilariously funny yet beneficial. So,
and you got to see him. He has some of them are shirtless, and some of them with a shirt for the guys. Like he has really, really good content. And guys, if you guys are looking to do some TikToks, follow Dave. I mean, he's a dating coach. He's amazing. So just connect with him on TikTok. You have Instagram, right?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
You can find my Instagram through my TikTok account or search my name on any social media, Google machine platform.
Definitely.
Right.
Thank you, Dave, so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for listening to Dear Baddies, Boyfriends, Bitches, and everything in between. Have a good night.
Have a good